A man's cruelty in a waiting room lasted 5 seconds. The consequences lasted a lifetime. What he thought was a weak, forgotten woman turned out to be the one person on Earth whose husband made grown men weep just by saying his name. Every story has a turning point. A moment so shocking it rewires everything you thought you understood about power, love, and who truly holds the cards. This is one of those stories. And you need to be here for every single second of it. Subscribe now, so you never miss what happens next. The kick landed just below her left knee. It was not an accident. Tyron had pulled back his foot, the same foot wearing the polished brown loafers she had once saved 3 weeks of her hospital salary to buy him. And he had sent it hard into her leg, right there in the waiting room of the Greenfield City General Hospital, with 17 people watching from blue plastic chairs. Tyron Thornton did not even look down at her when he did it. He was looking at his phone. Mitchell Blackwell, though most people in that room had no idea, sat on the floor where the force had sent her, one hand flat against the cold tiles, the other pressed over her stomach, not out of pain, out of instinct, out of the quiet, ferocious love that a mother grows before she even meets her child. She did not cry out. She had stopped crying out a long time ago. "Keith, you should not have come here," Tyron said, still looking at his phone. His voice was low and flat, the kind of voice that doesn't need to be loud to be cruel. "I told you not to come here. I told you we were done." Mitchell looked up at him. Her eyes were dry, her jaw was steady. Somewhere in her chest, something that used to love him had already gone quiet. The way a candle goes quiet after you blow it out. No drama. Just darkness. "I came for my medical file," she said. "Oh, I have an appointment." "You have a problem," Tyron said. "You need to stop." The hospital's front doors opened. Not with noise. Not with a crash or a bang or any of the dramatic entrances that stories like to invent. The doors simply opened, the way doors do. But the man who walked through them made the whole room feel like it had inhaled and forgotten to breathe out. He was not especially tall. He was not carrying anything. He was wearing a dark coat and plain trousers, and his face was calm in the specific way that very dangerous things are calm. The way deep water is calm. His eyes moved across the waiting room once, quickly, the way a person's eyes move when they have trained for years to see everything in a single glance. Those eyes found Mitchell on the floor. They stopped. His name was Kwang-Soo Yo. He was 34 years old, and he was originally from a small city in Gyeonggi Province, a place most people had never heard of, and fewer had visited. And he was, depending on who you asked, either the head of a private security corporation or the most quietly powerful man in 3 countries. Both answers were correct. He crossed the room in 9 steps. Tyron did not register him until the man was standing directly beside him. Not in front of him, not behind him, but beside him, at exactly the same height, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. "Is this woman yours?" Kwang-Soo said. His voice was very quiet. It had no accent that Tyron could identify. It asked the question the way a judge reads a sentence. Tyron turned. He looked at Kwang-Soo. He took in the plain coat, the average height, the still face, and he made the mistake that people who have never truly been afraid always make. He decided this man wasn't worth being afraid of. "Who are you?" Tyron said. So Kwang-Soo looked down at Mitchell. He extended one hand, not reaching for her urgently, not grabbing, simply extending it, open, palm up, the way you offer something to someone you respect. "Can you stand?" he asked her. Mitchell looked at his hand for 1 second. Then she took it. He helped her up slowly, careful, making sure she had her balance before he let go. When she was standing, he looked at her stomach once. Not staring, and just acknowledging, and something shifted almost invisibly in his expression. Not pity, something closer to recognition. "I asked you a question," Tyron said, louder now. Kwang-Soo turned to look at him. The calmness in his face did not change at all, That was the terrifying part. There was no warning, no tightening of the jaw, no shift in posture, no dramatic pause, just the same stillness. "She is not yours," Kwang Soo said. "She is mine." The waiting room had gone completely silent. The woman knitting in the corner had stopped knitting. The man reading a newspaper had folded it. Even the television mounted on the wall, some afternoon talk show, seemed to understand that it should keep its noise to itself. Tyron laughed. It was the sharp, dismissive laugh of a man who is already embarrassed and trying not to show it. "Yours? She's my ex," Mitchell said. Her voice did not shake. "He is my ex. And this—" She looked at Kwang Soo. Oh, and something passed between them that the room could feel, but not name. "This is my husband." The silence got heavier. Tyron stared at her. "You're what?" Mitchell did not repeat herself. Tyron's eyes went back to Kwang Soo. He was recalculating now. Tyron was the kind of man who was always calculating, always measuring, and always deciding what things were worth. And you could see the calculation happening behind his eyes as he looked at the plain coat and the quiet face and tried to figure out what kind of husband this was. He got it wrong. "You got married?" Tyron said to Mitchell, and his voice had changed now. It was not flat anymore. It was sharp, like a man who had just discovered something had been taken from him that he had not wanted until this moment. "When? To him? Oh, you got married to some—" "Some what?" Kwang Soo said. The question was so quiet, so genuinely, dangerously quiet. Tyron's mouth closed. From the far end of the waiting room, near the corridor that led to the hospital offices, a door had opened. 3 men had walked in. They were dressed like ordinary people. One in a jacket, one in a pullover, one in a simple shirt. But they had positioned themselves at 3 separate points in the room with a precision that had nothing to do with looking for seats. A woman near the window noticed. She looked at the men, then at Kwang Soo, then back at the men, and she gathered her bag a little closer to herself without knowing exactly why. Tyron had not noticed the men yet. "I don't know what she told you," Tyron started, "but she was already pregnant when you left her," Kwang Soo said. "Yes, I know." Tyron stopped again. "I know everything," Kwang Soo said. "I knew before I married her." Mitchell was watching Kwang Soo's face. She had been married to him for 4 months. 4 months of learning that beneath that calm surface lived a man who paid attention to absolutely everything, who had once told her that the most important thing a person could ever do was notice. She had not known, when she met him, what he was, so she had known only that he was the first person in years who had looked at her, truly looked at her, and seen something worth staying for. She had not told him much about Tyron. She had not needed to. Kwang Soo had this quality, this specific, unsettling quality, of already knowing the important parts of things before you explained them. "You want to tell me what happened?" Tyron said, and now there was an edge in his voice that was trying very hard to sound like confidence. "Because I remember a very different story. I remember a woman who—" "I remember a man," Kwang Soo said, "who just kicked a pregnant woman in a hospital waiting room." The words landed in the room like a stone dropped into still water. Everyone felt the ripple. Tyron's face changed. For the first time since Kwang Soo had walked through those doors, Tyron actually looked around the room. He saw the people watching. He saw the judgment sitting open on their faces, the knitting woman, the newspaper man, the young mother with the toddler who had pressed her child against her side. He saw the 3 men he had not noticed before, standing at their positions, not watching him with hostility, but with the steady patience of people who are very good at waiting. And Tyron did what men like Tyron always do when they realize they have been seen clearly. He tried to rewrite what had happened. "It was an accident," he said. "I didn't. I was shifting, and she was on the floor, and—" "She was on the floor," Kwang Soo said, "because you put her there. I didn't mean—" "Stop talking," Mitchell said. Both men looked at her. She was not looking at Tyron. She had stopped needing to look at Tyron. She was looking at the door to the medical records office, which had opened, and a nurse was standing there with a folder in her hands calling her name. "Mrs. Yo," the nurse said. "We're ready for you." Mitchell straightened her coat. She adjusted the strap of her bag on her shoulder. She looked at Kwang-Soo once, and the look was not dramatic, not the kind of look that people in stories exchange across a crowded room with trembling lips and glistening eyes. It was simpler than that. It was the look of two people who had chosen each other on purpose. "Come with me," she said. "Yes," he said. They walked together toward the nurse and the open door. A tyrant stood in the middle of the waiting room with his mouth still open around words he had not been allowed to finish. The three men remained exactly where they were, not blocking him, not threatening him, not doing anything at all except existing in the room with a quality of presence that made leaving feel like the wisest idea Tyron had had all day. He left. The door to the records office closed behind Mitchell and Kwang-Soo. The woman with the knitting needle started knitting again. The newspaper man unfolded his paper. The afternoon talk show filled the room once more with its cheerful, unbothered noise. But inside the records office, the nurse was looking between the two of them with the careful neutrality of a woman who had seen many things in many years of hospital work and had learned to keep her observations to herself. "Mrs. Yo," she said again, setting the folder on the desk. "Your file is ready, but there is something we need to discuss." Mitchell sat down in the chair across the desk. Kwang-Soo stood behind her, one hand resting on the back of the chair, not on her shoulder, not touching her, just near her. The way a wall is near you. Present. Solid. "Go ahead," Mitchell said. The nurse opened the folder. She looked at the top page for a long moment, the way people look at things when they are deciding how to say them. "Your results from last week's tests," she began. "There is something in the imaging that we did not expect." Mitchell did not move. "The baby is fine," the nurse said quickly, because she had clearly learned that this was the first thing people needed to hear. "The baby is perfectly healthy. But," she turned the page, "there is something else. Something that we found. Something that wasn't there 8 months ago." The room was very quiet. Mitchell's hands resting in her lap stayed perfectly still. Kwang-Soo's hand, on the back of the chair, didn't move. "What kind of something?" Mitchell asked. The nurse looked at her with the careful, practiced compassion of someone about to say words that could not be unsaid. And she said them. "The story has only just begun, and nothing is what it looks like yet. Subscribe now so you are there when everything breaks open." The word the nurse used was mass. She said it plainly, so the way medical people learn to say hard things, without softening it so much that the meaning gets lost, but without sharpness either. Just the word, placed on the desk between them, like something that needed to be looked at directly. "A mass on the left side," the nurse said. "Small, but present. The radiologist flagged it for immediate follow-up. We would like to schedule a biopsy." Mitchell heard the word biopsy and felt something shift in her chest. Not panic, not yet, but the careful and slow awareness that the ground beneath her had changed texture. Like stepping onto a floor you expected to be solid and finding it slightly soft. "When?" she asked. "As soon as possible. Ideally within the week." Mitchell nodded once. Then she looked down at her hands in her lap, and for a moment, she was simply very still. Kwang-Soo crouched down beside her chair. He did not say anything. He did not tell her it was going to be fine. He was not the kind of man who said things he could not prove. He simply lowered himself to her level and looked at her face, waiting for her to look back. She did. His eyes, dark, steady. The eyes of a man who had looked at genuinely frightening things and not looked away, held hers. "One thing at a time," he said. That was all. But the way he said it, with the quiet certainty of someone who had navigated much worse and come out on the other side, made the air in the room feel slightly less heavy. Mitchell breathed. Schedule the biopsy, she told the nurse. The nurse wrote it down. They walked out of the records office and back through the waiting room, which had largely emptied now, the afternoon crowd thinning toward evening, and out through the hospital's front doors into the gray afternoon. There was a black vehicle waiting at the curb. One of the three men from inside the waiting room was standing beside it, not like a bodyguard in a film, not with his hands clasped in front of him, or his eyes scanning the street with theatrical intensity. He was just standing there, the way a person stands when they are good at their job and do not need to perform it. His name was Sung Kyo. He was 28, and he had been with Kwang-soo for 6 years. And in that time, he had learned that the most important skill his work required was not physical speed or tactical knowledge, but the ability to read a room in half a second and understand what was needed. He looked at Mitchell's face as they came through the doors. He opened the back door of the vehicle without being asked. Mitchell got in. Kwang-soo got in beside her. Sung Kyo closed the door and moved to the front. The vehicle pulled away from the curb. For a while, nobody spoke. The city moved past the windows, late afternoon shoppers, traffic slowing at a crossing, a child dragging a reluctant parent past a bakery window. Then Mitchell said quietly, "I don't want you to be afraid." Kwang-soo turned to look at her. "I can see it," she said. "You're very good at hiding it." "But I can see it." He was quiet for a moment. "I'm not afraid," he said. "Kwang." "I am concerned," he said. The word came out carefully, like something he had turned over a few times before placing it down. There is a difference. Afraid means I don't know what to do. Concerned means I am already thinking about what to do. Mitchell looked at him for a long moment. Then she almost smiled. Not fully, not the kind of smile a person smiles when things are easy, but the kind a person smiles when they find something true in the middle of a hard moment. "You were already on the phone before we got in the car," she said. "Yes." "Who?" "A doctor in Gyeonggi. The best one for this particular. I have a doctor here." "You will have two." Mitchell looked out the window. "You can't fix everything, Kwang-soo." "No," he agreed. "But I can make sure you have the best possible chance. Those two things are different." She did not argue. She was too tired to argue, and also, and this was the thing about Kwang-soo that had taken her the longest to accept, he was usually right, not in an arrogant way. In the quiet, an inconvenient way of someone who had simply thought about something more carefully than everyone else in the room. She leaned her head back against the seat. The baby moved, a slow, rolling shift that she felt more than saw, and she put one hand on her stomach automatically. Kwang-soo's eyes tracked the movement of her hand. He looked away again quickly, back to the window, but his jaw had changed, just slightly. Just barely visible, the way a person's face changes when they feel something they are not yet ready to put words to. They did not know yet that 3 blocks behind them, a different vehicle had been following since the hospital. It was not one of Kwang-soo's vehicles. It was not law enforcement. It was a silver car, unremarkable, the kind that disappears into traffic like a word disappears into a sentence. Inside the silver car, in the passenger seat, a man named Gerald Holt was holding a phone to his ear and saying, "Yes, she was with him. They left together. Yes, I'm sure." On the other end of the line, someone asked a question. Gerald Holt looked at the back of the black vehicle moving through traffic ahead of him. "She's pregnant," he said. "Very." Another question. "I don't know whose it is," Gerald said. "Does it matter?" A pause. Then a voice on the other end, the measured and unhurried. "It matters more than you think." Gerald Holt ended the call. He looked at the black vehicle. He kept following. Kwang-soo, in the back of that black vehicle, had not noticed the silver car. That was the detail that would matter later. Sung Kyo, in the front, had. He said nothing yet. He was still assessing. He turned at a corner that was slightly off the route home, just one corner, and watched in the rearview mirror. The silver car turned too. Sung-kyo's hand moved to the small communication device clipped to his collar. He pressed it once, lightly. In the back seat, Kwang-soo's eyes shifted very slightly toward the front. He had felt the deviation from the route. He always felt these things. He did not say anything in front of Mitchell. He reached into his coat pocket and took out his phone, and he typed a message with one thumb while looking out the window, and he sent it. Mitchell, with her head back and her eyes half closed, Fleur did not notice. She was thinking about the word mass. She was thinking about her baby. She was thinking about the waiting room and Tyron's face, and the specific, sour feeling of being seen at your lowest by someone who had helped put you there. She was thinking, too, and this surprised her, about the moment Kwang-soo had extended his hand. Open. Palm up. No urgency. Just the offer. She had known him for 11 months. They had married after 7. People thought they were reckless. Her cousin Diane, her only family close enough to have opinions, had called her on the phone and said very directly, "Mitchell, you have been pregnant and heartbroken for 4 months, and now you are telling me you are marrying a Korean businessman you met at a hospital cafeteria? Do you hear yourself?" Mitchell had heard herself. She had also heard, behind Diane's worry, the thing Diane would not say directly, that nobody had believed Mitchell's choices in a long time. Not Tyron. No, not her old friends from before. Not the people she used to work with who had smiled at her face and talked about her back. She had made this choice with her eyes open. She was still, mostly, sure it was the right one. The vehicle slowed at a red light. Sung-kyo had not returned to the usual route. He was taking a longer way, winding through quieter streets. Mitchell noticed, slightly, but driving routes were not the thing she had mental energy for today. The silver car stayed behind them. Kwang-soo's phone showed a reply to his message. He read it. His expression did not change. He typed back, "Not yet. Just watch." The red light turned green. They moved. Behind them, Gerald Holt moved too, and reached for his phone again because the person on the other end had just sent him a message, and the message said something that made him sit up straighter in the passenger seat and look at the black vehicle ahead with suddenly different eyes. The message said, "Do not lose them. Sight, he has something of mine." Gerald Holt did not know what that meant. He also knew better than to ask. The black vehicle turned onto a wide boulevard lined with bare winter trees, and the city evening settled around them. Street lights coming on, the sky turning from gray to the dark blue that comes just before proper night. And nothing about the scene looked dangerous. That was, of course, the point. Inside the vehicle, Mitchell had fallen asleep, and she slept the way very tired people sleep, suddenly, completely, with her head tipped toward the window and one hand still resting on her stomach. The kind of sleep that is less of a choice and more of a surrender. Kwang-soo looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked back at his phone. Then he typed one more message. Not to Sung-kyo this time, but to a different contact. A contact listed in his phone not by name, but by a single character that most people would not recognize as a name at all. The message he sent was 4 words. "We may have a problem." The reply came in 8 seconds. It said, "What kind?" Kwang-soo looked at Mitchell's sleeping face. He looked at the silver car in the mirror. He looked at the bare winter trees passing by the windows like dark lines drawn against the sky. He typed back, "The kind that starts with someone from the past." A pause. So then Tyron? Kwang-soo stared at the name. He had not mentioned Tyron to this contact. He had not mentioned Tyron to anyone except Sung-kyo and one other person. He had kept the knowledge of Mitchell's past deliberately contained, not to control it, but to protect it. To protect her. His fingers were very still on the phone. He typed, "How do you know that name?" The reply took longer this time. When it came, it was not the answer he expected. It was a photograph. So Kwang Soo looked at the photograph for a long time without any expression on his face at all. Then he closed the screen and put the phone in his pocket and looked out the window at the city passing by. And for the first time since the hospital waiting room, for the first time since he had walked through those doors and seen Mitchell on the floor, something in the perfect stillness of his face showed a crack. Not fear. Understanding. The most dangerous kind of understanding. The kind that tells you that the problem is bigger than you thought. That the pieces you were looking at were only the pieces that someone wanted you to see. And that behind them, just out of view, was something else entirely. Mitchell slept on, unaware. The silver car followed. And Kwang Soo-yo, who had navigated harder things than most people would ever believe, began very quietly to rearrange everything he thought he knew. Well, hold on, because the ground is about to shift in ways nobody in that car is ready for. Make sure you are subscribed so the next part reaches you the moment it drops. The photograph was of a building, not a dramatic building, not a headquarters or a fortress or anything that would catch a stranger's eye. It was an ordinary office block, gray, mid-sized, the kind that existed in every city and registered in nobody's memory. But it was a building Kwang Soo knew, and he knew it because it was one of his. Not one of the buildings his corporation owned publicly, the kind that appeared in registered documents and quarterly reports. This was one of the other ones, the buildings that existed in the space between what was legal and what was necessary, the buildings that kept certain things running that the official version of his life depended upon. Nobody was supposed to know about that building who did not already work inside it. The message below the photograph said, "We found this in Tyron Thornton's phone. He took the picture 3 weeks ago. He has been watching you for longer than your wife knows." Kwang Soo's mind was already moving. Quick. Ordered. The way it always moved when a threat presented itself, breaking the problem into its parts, laying each part down and examining it before picking up the next. Tyron had been watching him. Before the waiting room, before the kick, and before this afternoon, Tyron had been watching, which meant the encounter at the hospital was not accidental. Tyron had known Mitchell would be there, had possibly engineered being there at the same time, had used the waiting room not out of cruelty, or not only out of cruelty, but out of something more calculated. He was trying to provoke a reaction. Why? Kwang Soo looked at the darkening city outside the window. The vehicle had turned onto the quieter streets of the neighborhood where they lived, a calm, well-kept area that Mitchell had chosen, half as a joke, because, she said, it looked like the kind of place where nothing dramatic ever happened. He had not corrected her. Mitchell stirred in her sleep but did not wake. Sung-kyo's eyes met his in the rearview mirror, one question in them. Kwang Soo gave the smallest shake of his head. Not yet. They pulled into the private garage beneath the building. The silver car, which had been keeping its distance, slowed at the end of the street. It did not follow them in. It parked. It waited. Sung-kyo got out of the vehicle first, checked the garage with the quick, thorough sweep of someone who did this automatically, like breathing, and then opened the back door on Mitchell's side. She woke at the sound of the car door, blinking, that soft confusion of interrupted sleep crossing her face. "Ford, are we home?" "Yes," Kwang Soo said. She got out slowly, the way a heavily pregnant woman gets out of anything, with effort, with a small exhale, with the particular patience of someone whose body has become a separate negotiation. Kwang Soo was there beside her, not hovering, just present. They went up. The apartment was large and warm, and full of the quiet that expensive spaces have. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of good insulation and careful design. Now Mitchell had added things to it over the 4 months of their marriage. A bright orange throw on the gray sofa, a collection of small plants on the kitchen windowsill, a framed photograph of her grandmother on the shelf by the hallway. The apartment, which had been cold and functional before, had become something else. Kwang Soo noticed this every time he came home. Mitchell went to the kitchen, filled a glass with water, and stood at the counter drinking it slowly. Her back was to him, and he could see the tension in her shoulders, the particular tension of someone carrying more than one heavy thing at once. "The biopsy," she said, without turning around. I'm not scared of it exactly. She stopped. "You are allowed to be scared of it," Kwang-Soo said. "I'm not scared of the procedure. I'm scared of what it might say." "I know." She turned around. "And you? You have your doctor in Gyeonggi, and your contacts, and your—" She gestured, a slightly helpless gesture that meant everything she could not fully articulate. His world, his reach, all of the things he could do that she was still learning the shape of. "But that doesn't change what the test results will say." "No," he agreed. "It doesn't. But it changes what happens after." Mitchell set her glass down. She looked at him steadily. "Kwang-Soo, whatever the results are, I need to know that you married me because of me. Not because—" "Mitchell, let me finish." He waited. "Kwang, not because you felt responsible. Not because I was pregnant and abandoned, and you saw something that needed fixing. I married you," he said, and his voice had the quality it got sometimes. Very quiet, very direct, the kind of direct that had no performance in it at all. "Because you were the first person I had met in a long time who spoke to me like I was a person and not a position." Mitchell was quiet. "In the cafeteria," he said, when you told me my coffee order was wrong." She made a small sound, almost a laugh. "I said the machine was set wrong. I didn't tell you. You told me I had been drinking bad coffee for probably weeks, and I should complain to the building management." He paused. "Nobody tells me things like that." Mitchell looked at him. Her eyes were bright, the brightness that is not tears, yet, but is near them. "That was not a reason to marry someone," she said. "No," he agreed. "No, but it was a reason to stay. The other reasons came after." A beat of silence. Then Mitchell said, "There's a car outside." Kwang-Soo went still. "Silver," she said. "It was behind us most of the way home. I noticed it when we turned onto the boulevard. I was half awake. It's parked at the end of the street." He looked at her. She looked back. "I'm pregnant," she said, not unobservant. A pause. Then Kwang-Soo said, "Do you know who drives a silver car?" "I can guess," she said, and her voice was flat now, flat in a different way than she had been in the waiting room. Not the flatness of someone in shock, but the flatness of someone who had just confirmed a suspicion they had hoped was wrong. Tyron. Or someone Tyron sent. Kwang-Soo moved to the window. He looked out, careful, standing to the side, the way he always looked out of windows, never directly in the center. The silver car was there, parked under a street light, 2 figures visible inside. "2 people," he said. "Who's the other one?" "I don't know yet." Mitchell came and stood beside him, not at the window. She stopped a few feet back, where she couldn't be seen from the street. "Kwang-Soo, what did Tyron want? At the hospital today? What was he actually after?" "Because that wasn't just him being," she paused, "himself. That was something else." Kwang-Soo turned from the window to look at her, and this was the moment he had been weighing since the car. The moment in every difficult conversation where you had to decide whether to give someone less than the truth in order to protect them, or the full truth because they had already shown you they could carry it. He had learned, in 4 months of marriage to Mitchell Blackwell, that she could carry more than most people expected. "Tyron knows something about my business," Kwang-Soo said. "Something he should not know. Gee, someone told him. I don't know yet who. He has been using it to try to build leverage." "Leverage for what?" "I believe," Kwang-Soo said, and he was choosing each word with precision, "that he wants access to something I have, something I acquired before I met you. And he calculated." His voice did not change, but something behind it did, that you were the right pressure point. The word pressure point landed in the room like something cold. Mitchell understood what it meant, and she was not naive. She had known from early on that Kwang Su existed in a world where people were sometimes treated as instruments. She had known it and chosen him anyway, because she had also seen, with her own eyes, repeatedly, the specific care he took not to treat her that way. But knowing that someone else might, that Tyron specifically might have, "He came to the hospital today to make me look bad in front of you," she said slowly. It was not a question. She was working it out. He wanted you to see me. On the floor, visibly distressed with his child. She touched her stomach briefly. To make you doubt. He wanted me to feel that you were a liability, Kwang Su said. Yes. Mitchell was silent for a moment. And instead, I walked in and made it clear you were not. Mitchell looked at him for a long time. That photograph he took of your building, she said. Kwang Su's expression shifted, barely, briefly, but she caught it. You already knew. She stopped. How long have you known about the photograph? 40 minutes, he said. I received it in the car. Who sent it? Someone I trust. Who is? Mitchell. She waited. There are parts of my world, he said carefully, that I have kept away from you deliberately. Not as a secret, as a protection, but a pause. I think the line between those two things is becoming less clear. Something moved in Mitchell's face. Not hurt, or not only hurt. Understanding, but the complicated kind. The kind that carries love and disappointment in the same breath. Kwang Su, she said, I am not a person who needs to be kept safe from information. I'm a person who is about to have a baby, possibly facing a biopsy, sitting in an apartment with a silver car outside. The information is not the danger. The not knowing is. The room was very quiet. Outside, the silver car had not moved. Kwang Su's phone, in his pocket, silent, was receiving a message, and he did not look at it yet. He looked at Mitchell, and then he said something he had not said to another person in years. Not because it was difficult to say, but because there had simply not been anyone in years who had earned the full weight of it. You're right, he said. Sit down. I'll tell you everything. Mitchell did not sit down. Stand if you prefer, he said. Thank you, she said. He told her. He told her about the building and the photograph, its real purpose, and the specific operation it housed, the reason knowing about it was dangerous. He told her about the contact who had found the photograph on Tyron's phone, and what that meant about how deep Tyron had already gone. He told her about the person who had sent him the message, a name she had never heard, who operated in spaces that had no public record. He told her as clearly and plainly as he told anyone anything, without drama, without softening, without asking her to approve or forgive or understand more than the facts required. When he was done, Mitchell was quiet for a long time. Then she said, The person who sent you the photograph, the one you trust. Yes. Is that person the same person who introduced us? The silence stretched. Kwang Su said very carefully, What makes you ask that? Because, Mitchell said, I did not end up at that hospital cafeteria by accident. I was sent there by a woman I met at a conference 2 days before. A woman I now realize I know almost nothing about, except that she knew my name before I told it to her, and she suggested the cafeteria specifically. A beat. Her name was Ms. Park, or that's what she said. Kwang Su's face did something that Mitchell had never seen it do before. It showed surprise, not performance, not the tactical pause. Actual, unguarded surprise, the kind that arrives before a person can manage it. So you were not. I did not arrange for you to. I know you didn't, Mitchell said. Someone else did. They stared at each other across the room. The silver car sat outside under the streetlight. Somewhere in the building, or perhaps very close to it, someone had orchestrated the beginning of their story. Someone who had known, before either of them did, that these two people needed to be in the same room, and neither of them knew why. The name Ms. Park meant something. Kwang-soo had gone to his phone the moment Mitchell said it, and what he found there, or more precisely, what he could not find there, told him more than finding something would have. There was no Ms. Park in any record he could access, not by that name, not matching the description Mitchell gave. Late 40s, short hair, a very deliberate way of speaking, a small scar below her left ear. Kwang-soo had resources that could identify most people from significantly less. The fact that this woman returned nothing at all was not a gap. It was a wall, and walls this clean were not accidents. "She's in the network," he said. "Your network?" "A network? I'm not sure it's mine." This was, for Kwang-soo, an extraordinary sentence. There were not many networks that existed outside his knowledge. He sat with the discomfort of that, which was real, genuine discomfort, the kind a person feels when they realize the map they have been using does not show the whole territory. "Oh, walk me through it again," he said. "The conference, from the beginning." Mitchell did. She had been at a public health networking event. She had still been working at a clinic then, before the pregnancy had become too demanding. A woman approached her during a coffee break, knew her name, said she had heard about Mitchell's work in maternal health outreach. He suggested they continue their conversation, somewhere less crowded. There's a wonderful cafeteria 2 blocks from here. The cafeteria in the hospital, where Kwang-soo had been that day for reasons he had considered routine. A meeting with the hospital's administrator about a donation his corporation was making. A meeting he was 2 minutes early for, which was why he had stopped for coffee, which was why he had been standing at the machine when Mitchell told him it was calibrated wrong. "She chose us," Mitchell said. "Ms. Park. She put us in the same room." "Yes, and she put the photograph of your building in Tyron's hands." "I don't—" Kwang-soo paused. "That I'm less certain of. That feels like a different hand. Could they be connected?" He was quiet for a moment. "Everything is connected. The question is how." Mitchell sat down now, finally, on the orange blanketed sofa, because her back had been aching since the hospital floor, and she had been standing out of stubbornness more than necessity. "Who would benefit from you and I meeting? That is what I'm trying to understand. And who would benefit from Tyron having leverage over you? A competitor, someone I've crossed, someone who—" He stopped. His eyes changed, not dramatically, but in the way they did when a thought arrived that he needed to hold still and examine. Or someone who wanted me distracted. Distracted from what? From the fact that something was being taken. Mitchell looked at him. "Has something been taken?" "I don't know yet. I need—" He reached for his phone again, then stopped himself. He put the phone face down on the table. "I need to think before I make calls. If this is someone inside the network, then every call I make is a call they can see." The apartment felt different now. The warm light, the orange blanket, on the little plants on the kitchen windowsill, all of it was the same, unchanged. But the quality of the air had shifted, the way it does when you understand that a situation has been happening for longer than you knew, and you are only now catching up to it. "Kwang-soo," Mitchell said, "the person who sent you the photograph, the one you trust. You never told me who it was." "I know. You said you'd tell me everything." "I said I would. And this part, but it's more complicated than the rest. How can it be more complicated than what you've already told me?" He was quiet, the kind of quiet that had a shape to it, not evasion but something closer to a person standing in front of a door, deciding. "The person who sent me the photograph," he said slowly, "is someone who, for the last 3 years, has been working against me." Mitchell went very still. Not openly, not in a way that caused direct harm, but collecting information, building a picture, accumulating things that could, at the right moment, be used. He was looking at the wall across from him rather than at her. "I have known this for approximately 8 months, and I have chosen, deliberately, not to stop it. Why? Because the person is my sister." The word sister filled the room like a sound. Mitchell stared at him. You have a sister? Yes. You have never? I know. In 11 months, you have never? I know. Mitchell. His voice was steady, but something inside it was not. Her name is Yeo Soo-ran. She is 31. She left Korea when she was 22. I have not seen her in 9 years. He paused. She blames me for something. Something that happened to our family. She is not entirely wrong to blame me. Mitchell's hands were folded in her lap. She was watching his face very carefully. She has been building a case, he said. I don't know. Against whom exactly? Against me. Against someone connected to me. I have not been able to determine the full target. I have been waiting, watching her move and choosing not to interfere, because he stopped. And for a moment, the careful control in his voice slipped, just slightly, the way something slips when the grip has been held too long and the muscles have finally tired. Because she is the only family I have left, and if she needs to do this to be ready to face me, then I have been willing to let her. Mitchell was quiet for a long time. Is she good? She finally asked. He turned to look at her. Is she good at what she does? The gathering, the information, the being invisible. Is she actually good? She is exceptional, he said. And there was something in it. Pride, perhaps, or a specific grief that looked like pride. The way those two things can sometimes wear each other's faces. Then the photograph wasn't a threat, Mitchell said, on thinking aloud. She sent it to you as a warning. She found it on Tyron's phone, and she decided to tell you. Yes, I think so. Which means Mitchell was working through it, step by careful step. She knows who Tyron is, which means she knows about me. Yes. For how long? Probably since before our marriage. Mitchell absorbed this. She knew I was going to meet you. I believe she arranged it. She has the kind of access that makes that possible. Ms. Cy Park. I believe so. The silver car was still outside. Mitchell had almost forgotten it. The revelation of Soo-ran had pushed everything else to the edges of the room. Why? Mitchell asked. Why would she put us together if she has been working against you? Kwang-soo was quiet for a long moment. I've been asking myself that question since the moment you told me about Ms. Park. He looked at his hands, then at Mitchell. The only answer I can find is that she was not working against me when she did it. She was working for something, some purpose of her own that I don't yet understand. And putting you in my life was part of it. Mitchell looked at him steadily. And the baby? Does she know about the baby? Everyone who has been watching me knows about the baby. The word everyone sat between them like a third person in the room. Mitchell put her hand on her stomach. No, not dramatically, just the same reflexive gesture, the one she made a dozen times a day. But this time it had more weight in it. The awareness that this child, who had not yet entered the world, had already become a piece of a story that other people were writing. I'm not angry, she said. Kwang-soo looked surprised again, twice in one evening. A record. I should be, she added, and there's a part of me that is. But she looked at him directly. You didn't put her up to it. You didn't even know. And the fact that she looked at your life and decided I was what it needed. A pause. I want to understand that, before I decide how to feel about it. I want to understand it too, he said, very much. From the table, his face-down phone lit up briefly at the edge. A notification. Not a call. He did not touch it. Then his home security panel, a flat screen beside the door, usually showing a quiet grid of cameras, beeped once, softly. Sung Kyo's voice came through the speaker panel. There's someone in the lobby, not using the main entrance. Service corridor. Kwang-soo was on his feet immediately. Description. Female. Small. Dark coat. She's... A pause. She's looking directly at the camera. She knows she's being watched. Does she have anything? No visible. Wait. Sung Kyo's voice shifted. She just held something up to the camera. What? It's another pause. A longer one. It's a photo. She's holding a photograph up to the camera. It's... Sung Kyo's voice went very careful. It's you and her, sir. When you were children. Complete silence. Kwang Soo looked at the security panel. On the camera feed, small and grainy, a woman in a dark coat was standing in the service corridor, holding a photograph up to the lens with both hands. Not as a threat. Not as a weapon. As an identification. As a knock on a door she had not knocked on in 9 years. Let her up, Kwang Soo said. Sung Kyo, let her up. A pause. Yes, sir. Kwang Soo turned to Mitchell. My sister is here, he said. Mitchell stood up. I know, she said. I feel it. She paused, slightly surprised at her own words. Is that strange to say? No, he said. They stood together in the warm apartment, facing the door. The elevator at the end of the hall began to move. Every answer they find tonight opens a door to something bigger. And not everyone who walks through that door means well. Subscribe now, so you are here when it all comes apart. The elevator opened. The woman who stepped out was not what Mitchell expected. She was not entirely sure what she expected, but she had built some version of Soo-ran in her imagination over the last 20 minutes, and the real version rearranged it completely. Soo-ran was small. She barely reached Kwang Soo's shoulder. She had close-cropped hair and eyes that were her brother's eyes. Same darkness, same precision, and same quality of taking in a room in a single look, set in a face that was somehow both younger and older than her 31 years. She was wearing a plain dark coat, practical boots, no jewelry. She carried nothing. She looked at Kwang Soo first. 9 years is a long time. Long enough for two people to have become mostly strangers. Long enough for old pain to have hardened into something that had been carried so long it had changed shape. Neither of them moved for a moment. They just looked at each other, standing at either end of the short hallway, and the air between them had weight. Then Soo-ran looked at Mitchell. Her expression changed. It was not a soft change. Soo-ran was not, apparently, a person given to soft changes, but it was real. A recognition. The look of someone who has studied a subject from a distance and is now seeing it full size. I should have come sooner, she said. Her voice was low and even. I accented differently from Kwang Soo's. She had clearly spent more time in English-speaking places. I kept telling myself there was a better time. There wasn't. Come in, Kwang Soo said. She came in. She did not look around the apartment the way a stranger would. She was taking in the security points, Mitchell realized. The windows, the exits, the angles. Professional habit. You sent me the photograph, Kwang Soo said. Yes. And you sent her to me, he said. Meaning Mitchell. And Soo-ran looked at Mitchell again. I met you at a conference 14 months ago. You were talking to a colleague about maternal health funding. You said... She paused, as if deciding whether the detail was necessary, then decided it was. You said that the hardest part of working in healthcare was watching people fall through gaps that didn't need to exist, that could be closed if the right people just paid attention. A beat. My brother pays attention, I thought. You thought I was a suitable match, Mitchell said. Her voice was steady but not warm. Not yet. I thought you were good for him, Soo-ran said. There is a difference. Kwang Soo sat down. This, for him, was significant. He almost never sat during tense conversations, preferring to stand, to have mobility, to keep his body ready for something. Sitting was a choice, a statement. Why are you here tonight, Soo-ran? He asked. The photograph was a warning. Or you could have stayed behind the warning. Soo-ran pulled out a chair from the dining table and sat across from him. Her posture was exactly like his, upright, still, contained. Because Tyrant Thornton is not working alone, she said. And the person he is working with is someone I have been tracking for 2 years. Someone you know." Kwang Su said nothing. "Gerald Holt," she said. The name moved across Kwang Su's face, like wind moves across water. You could see it, briefly, and then the surface settled again. "Gerald Holt," he repeated. "He's been in this city for 3 weeks. He arrived at the same week Tyron Thornton contacted him. The contact wasn't accidental. Holt reached out first." Su-ran folded her hands on the table. "Gerald Holt has been acquiring information about your network for 18 months. He's not a competitor. He's a collection point. He gathers intelligence for a larger organization and sells it. The building in the photograph? He already has its purpose on record." "Who is his buyer?" Kwang Su asked. "That is the part that I came to tell you in person," Su-ran said, "because I could not put it in a message." A pause. "The buyer," she said, "is someone who has been building a case against you for 5 years. Someone with the patience to wait and the resources to be very precise about timing." She looked at her brother directly. "They waited until you had something to lose." The room understood what that meant. So Mitchell understood it. She looked at Kwang Su. He was looking at his sister, but she could see, from the particular stillness that had come over him, a stillness different from his usual controlled calm, deeper and quieter, that he understood it too. "They waited for her," he said. "Meaning Mitchell. Meaning the baby." "Leverage is only leverage when there is something you will not sacrifice," Su-ran said, flatly, not cruelly, just as a fact. "For years. Now, there was nothing you would not sacrifice." "Then there was," Mitchell breathed out slowly. "Who is the buyer?" Kwang Su asked again. His voice was very quiet. Su-ran told him. It was a name Mitchell had never heard. But she watched Kwang Su's face as he received it, and what she saw there, moving through his expression before he could fully contain it, the way something long anticipated finally arrives, and is somehow still a blow, told her everything about the weight of that name. "How long have you known?" he asked. "Confirmed? 6 weeks? Suspected?" "Much longer." Su-ran paused. "He was the reason I left. 9 years ago. He told me things about you that I believed, that I built my—" She stopped. Started again. "I was wrong to believe them. I understood that approximately 3 years ago. I have spent the time since then finding out the truth." The apartment was completely silent. Outside, the silver car. Gerald Holt, and whoever was with him. Waiting. Watching. On part of a machine that had been running for 5 years, built by someone who had the patience of a person who believes they will eventually win. Kwang Su stood up. He walked to the window, to the side of it, always to the side, and looked down at the street. "The car outside," he said. "Gerald Holt, and one of his people." Su-ran reached into her coat pocket and placed a small drive on the table. "Everything I have is on this. Every connection, every transaction, every piece of the structure. It is enough." She paused. "It is more than enough." Kwang Su looked at the drive. Then he looked at his sister. "Why give this to me?" he said. "After everything. Why not use it yourself?" Su-ran was quiet for a moment. In the quiet, she looked, for the first time since she had walked through the door. Not like a professional. Not like someone running an operation. She looked like someone who was 31 years old, and tired in the specific way that people are tired when they have been carrying something for too long and have finally found the right hands to put it in. "Because it affects her," she said, and she looked at Mitchell. "And the baby. And I will not. I am not willing to let what happened to our family happen to yours." The word "yours" hit Mitchell somewhere she had not been expecting. Because in that word, the way Su-ran said it, not with the careful flatness of someone who does not allow themselves to be sentimental, but cannot entirely prevent the thing from showing at the edges, was an invitation. Not a warm one, not an easy one, but real. She had arranged for them to meet. She had spent 14 months watching from a distance, making sure. She had come tonight, in person, through a service corridor, holding a childhood photograph up to a camera, not because it was strategic, because it was the only way she knew to knock. "Sue ran," Mitchell said. The woman looked at her. "Thank you," Mitchell said. Simply, without conditions or performance. For the cafeteria, for the photograph, for tonight. Sue Ran did not know what to do with that. You could see it, the momentary loss of the careful professional composure, the small war between the habit of distance and something older and more fundamental. She looked away, cleared her throat. "The drive," she said. You should act before morning. Gerald Holt is not patient. If he feels the situation shifting, he will—" "I know what he will do," Kwang Soo said. He had the drive in his hand. He was looking at it with the look of a man who is already 3 steps ahead, already building the response in his mind, already seeing the shape of what comes next. Then he stopped. He turned to look at Mitchell. "Before I make any call," he said, "before I do anything, is there anything you need? Right now. But before this, I need you to do what needs to be done," she said. "I need you to trust your sister." A pause. "And I need you to tell me one thing." "What?" "The thing you feel about this baby." She looked at him steadily. The orange blanket, the small plants, the photograph of her grandmother, the life she had built in 4 months inside his apartment, quietly, like planting things in new ground. "Say it out loud, just once." Kwang Soo looked at her. He was not a man who said things out loud that he had only carried inside. She knew this. She was asking anyway. And the fact that she was asking, directly, clearly, without apology, was one of the things that he had understood, somewhere around month 2 of their marriage, was the exact quality in her that had made his sister choose her. "This child," he said quietly, with the particular steadiness of someone saying something true, "is mine. Fully. Entirely. That has been true since the first time you let me be present at an appointment. It has nothing to do with—" He stopped, and for a moment the steadiness wavered, just slightly. "It has nothing to do with biology or circumstance, or what Tyrant Thornton is, or is not. It is mine because I have chosen it. Because I choose it every day. A beat. That will not change. Nothing will change it." Mitchell's eyes were bright. She did not cry. She pressed her lips together once, and the brightness stayed in her eyes, and she nodded. "Good," she said. "Now go deal with Gerald Holt." From the corner, Soo Ran was looking at the window very intently, with the fixed attention of someone who is working very hard to be professional and unaffected, and is mostly succeeding. Kwang Soo went to his phone. He made 2 calls. They were short, brief, specific, to the kind of calls that people who are very good at what they do make when something has been building for a long time and the moment to move has finally arrived. Not dramatic, just precise. Sung Kyo came up from the garage. He was given the drive and instructions. Within the hour, Gerald Holt and his companion, who were still in the silver car, still waiting, but still believing they were the ones watching, would discover that the thing about Kwang Soo-yeo's world was that he never reacted when he could respond, and he never responded until he was certain. He was certain now. The silver car would not be there by morning. Gerald Holt would be asked, through channels that did not require visible force, to make a choice. The information on the drive, everything Soo Ran had spent 2 years building, would be in the right hands before dawn. The man who had been building a case for 5 years would discover that the gap between patience and victory was much wider than he had calculated. But that was not the most important thing that happened that night. The most important thing was smaller and had no audience. It happened after Sung Kyo left with the drive, after the calls were made, after Soo Ran had been given the guest room with the kind of direct practicality that Kwang-Soo used for everything. "You will stay here. We will talk more tomorrow." And Soo-ran, who had been alone for 9 years, had looked at him for a long moment and said, very quietly, "All right." The most important thing happened in the kitchen, close to midnight, when Mitchell was making tea because she could not sleep. Decaf, the only kind she allowed herself. And Kwang-Soo came and stood beside her at the counter, and they were both quiet for a while, and then she said, "The biopsy is on Thursday." "I know," he said. "I'll be there. You don't have to stay the whole time." "I know," he said again. "I'll be there the whole time." Mitchell looked at the kettle. She looked at the small plants on the windowsill. One of them was leaning slightly toward the glass, reaching for the outside light. She had been meaning to turn it around for a week and forgetting. She reached over and turned it. "Whatever the results say," she said. "Whatever they say," Kwang-Soo confirmed. She poured the tea, and set a second cup down for him. He did not usually drink tea, but he had been drinking it since month 2 of their marriage, quietly, without mentioning it, the way you adopt the small habits of people who matter to you. He picked up the cup. They stood in the kitchen, the woman who had been kicked to the floor of a waiting room that morning, and the man who had walked through the doors and extended his hand. And they drank their tea, and the silver car was gone from the street outside. And Soo-ran was asleep in the guest room, with the particular deep sleep of someone who has finally put down what they were carrying. And the baby moved once, slow and rolling, like a punctuation mark at the end of a very long sentence. And the night held them. Not perfectly, not without cost or complication, or the knowledge that more was coming. There was still Thursday. There were still results to wait for. There were still conversations that needed to happen, with Soo-ran, and about the 9 years, with the world, about the man who had spent 5 years building leverage over someone he did not understand, about the child who would arrive and reshape everything the way children always do, by simply existing with total confidence in their right to be here. But tonight, just this one night, the worst of it had passed, and they were still standing. You stayed through every twist. You already know this is the kind of story that gets into your bones. The most emotional stories belong to those who never miss a chapter. Subscribe and be the first one here every single time a new story begins.